Christians claim that moral values have been delivered to us by the Christian God Yahweh through the Bible. The Bible is the word of their God, unalterable and definitive. Even those who are not Christians might respect biblical values enumerated in the Ten Commandments. But were the biblical laws really handed down by Yahweh on a mountain to Moses? Or do these laws have an earlier origin? The issue is clarified significantly when you read the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or perhaps less well known but more accurate, Book of the Emerging Forth into the Light. This is an ancient Egyptian funeral text dating from about 1550 BC. It contains a negative confession in which the deceased enumerates all of the ways they have lived a moral life. It captures the moral laws of the period. It is clear from the text that non-violence was considered a virtue, with statements such as, "I am not a man of violence," and "I have not slain men and women." This is clearly similar to the Abrahamic prohibition on murder. Theft is also addressed in the statements such as, "I have not stolen," and "I have not snatched away the bread of the child." Clearly murder and theft were considered immoral before Moses allegedly left on his journey into the desert. The negative confession is also a testament to the large number of gods that the Egyptian people worshipped. Each line of the negative confession is to a different deity. This wasn't always the case. There was a period of Egyptian history where the sole god was the sun god. This was an earlier example of monotheism. However, monotheism didn't last in Egypt, and these texts refer mainly to different gods. It is with this plethora of gods in mind that we examine statements about blasphemy, such as, "I have not blasphemed," and "I have not treated with contempt the God of my city." Clearly the concept of blasphemy predates Abrahamic prohibition of using the name Yahweh in vain. The Ten Commandments also prohibit lying or bearing false witness. This too is concluded in the negative confession, but covers a wider range of dishonourable actions. Outright lying is addressed with the statement, "I have not uttered lies," and "I am not a man of deceit." However, it goes further to also deal with eavesdropping, slander, and the use of profanity. Probably one of the commandments that the Christian God left off the Abrahamic 10 was the prohibition on homosexuality. Those who want to support prohibition based on biblical teaching today need to rely on relatively obscure passages in the Bible rather than one of the revered Ten Commandments. If they had been using the negative confession, however, they would be in luck, with a specific statement that, "I have not lain with men." The prohibition on adultery is also included in the negative confession, saying, "I have not committed adultery," matching the Ten Commandments. It contains many statements which are not contained in the Ten Commandments, such as, "I have not shut my ears to the words of the truth." There are of course biblical references to truth, but the Bible uses it in a special way. In normal everyday language, when we say something is true, we mean that it is independently verifiable. When asked, "Did you sleep with that prostitute?" the truth isn't a matter of interpretation. You did, or you didn't. The truth is determined by reality. Now, we could get into philosophical nightmare of deciding what reality is, and with advances in quantum mechanics, this is an interesting field. However, in this context we shall define reality as that which the vast majority of people agree exists, our shared experience, as opposed to the internal experiences such as emotions and thoughts we have individually. Biblical truth is about unverifiable and unprovable emotional experiences ascribed to the power or influence of the Christian God. The Book of the Dead predates the time of Moses, yet according to the Moses story, the Jewish people came out of Egypt. It is therefore probable that the Jewish people had been exposed to the same cultural values. The Ten Commandments therefore were in no way new commandments. If anything, it was simply the projection of Egyptian moral values onto the Jewish people. The God of Moses becomes a tool to enforce moral laws common in Egypt on the Jewish people through an appeal to divine authority. This is almost compelling until you understand the lack of evidence for the Exodus. The Jewish people were never slaves in Egypt. The Jewish stories of Yahweh's punishment on the Egyptians is not recorded in Egyptian history. There is no physical evidence for a mass exodus from Egypt into Israel, nor do we see any shred of physical evidence for the parting of the Red Sea. There is evidence for some migration that may have occurred between Egypt and Israel, and being in close proximity, it is hardly improbable that moral concepts would have mixed between the two cultures. The negative confession stands as one of the best documented examples of an ancient moral code. It undermines the role of a God in delivering the commandments to the Jewish people. If we granted the story of Moses as written in the Bible, and Moses was originally raised as an Egyptian prince in the royal family, then there is no way he would have not been exposed to Egyptian moral values. And if Moses knew these moral laws before he left Egypt, what is the role of his God, Yahweh, in writing them onto tablets?